Welcome to Real Health with me, Carl Henry. Folks, if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review and give us a follow wherever you get your podcasts from. Every rating, every review and every follow makes a huge difference to us here in Real Health, so we'd really appreciate it. Now, this week's topic. Nutrition should be very simple, but nowadays it seems like a very confusing and scary space. To clear up any murkiness, I am joined by Registered Dietitian Sarah Keogh at Sarah Keogh RD on Instagram to give us answers rather than more questions. Sarah, welcome back to Real Health. As always, it is wonderful to see your reassuring, safe, qualified face in front of me here. How are you?
Good. It's lovely to be back.
It is more and more. I have to say I'm frightened by what I see now. Maybe I'm getting old and a bit cranky in my old age, at the ripe old age of 42 and a half. But it is a confusing space. I'm not sure anyone knows what to eat anymore when it comes to food. I think people are just more and more bamboozled than ever before.
Well, I think so, and nutrition. If we talk to plain basic healthy eating, what does the nutrition need? We already know that. And I love when I go in and I do workplace talks and people are like, oh, I kind of know most of that. And you're like, because you actually do. What mostly I'm doing now, and I think of it like he was cutting through a lot of the noise, because healthy eating doesn't sell. So if you want to kind of, get attention, something like that, sometimes and it's to say contradictory things, or it's to say, oh, we used to think this was good, but now it's actually bad, or scaring you that you have to eat a certain way to balance your female hormones, is just what I was seeing on Instagram earlier.
That's huge, isn't it now?
Yeah,
And there's words like reset, and balance and rebalance and addressing your imbalance, and you're all like, seriously. And
yes, it's all crap,
Well, the one thing I'd say to any of our followers or any sessions that we do is that the first question you ask before you sign up for the course or before you follow the advice on their Instagram account is, what qualification have you got? And they tend to be light enough on the ground in terms of qualifications, don't they?
It's very mixed, and you have some really well qualified people out there. And, I was actually talking about this to students last night. Someone's go, how come there's so many people talking and maybe not accurate in what they're saying? And I said, well, not everybody knew they wanted to study nutrition when they left school. A lot of them are trying to do it now when they've jobs and mortgages, and they can't take 4 years out to go to university and do a proper qualification. And there's a lot of kind of courses. There's some good ones out there, but there's a lot that are maybe not the best, and the person doing them might not know that, and they might do this course and they might come out with information. And I've met lots of people over the years with this, and they've just been told things that are just incorrect. And how do you know any different? So I think a lot of it is innocently done, but that doesn't help when you're the person trying to figure out, what am I supposed to eat, or what am I supposed to avoid? Am I supposed to be fasting? Am I supposed to be taking magnesium? Are nightshade vegetables really going to kill me? And I drove past a place recently and they were selling alkaline water, and you're just thinking, really?
Oh, is that back in fashion?
Diets. I know. It's just.
I grew up, it's a whole different podcast conversation, but I grew up around alkaline water.
Yeah.
There was a company in Dublin in the 90s and 80s selling it, and they used to distill it in Eccles Street in Dublin, and I grew up all around that setup, and I remember it well. Is that back in fashion again? Oh my God. Okay.
3 seconds after you drink it, it's in a big bath of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So it's doing nothing. But anyway.
I love it when we catch up. We could sit and rant for days and days and days, but we're not going to, folks. We are not going to. We're going to get stuck into it. We have loads of questions here that I was putting together before when we knew that you're coming on. First of all, why do people gain weight when things get dark? Or when the clock changes, all of a sudden people seem to think, and maybe this is a misconception, that they're just gaining weight. It's like someone presses a button and they begin to gain weight in the winter months.
Well, loads of people do. And, I've worked with people for years, and they'd be doing great across the summer. And then as soon as it gets dark, the weight loss either really slows down or it pops back on again. And a lot of it is, in Ireland, a lot of us do go out for a walk on the bright evenings when it's really bright up till 9-10 o'clock at night. Finish dinner and think, oh, it's bright out, you might as well go for a walk. So we tend to be that bit more active during the summer. Once the winter come in, and I see this actually a lot with women, they don't feel safe necessarily going out when it is dark. So there's that kind of aspect of it. But there is also, it is just dark, but also it's cold and it's wet and it's miserable and it's very hard to go out and do it. So our activity for a lot of people falls off. And I know when I work with people, the thing I'd always say to them is, you have to have the exercise you will do when the weather is bad. You have to have the exercise you'll do when it is dark, because it's Ireland and that's happening for 6 months in the year. So that is, a lot of people, their activity falls off. But the other thing we do then is, when we are bored in Ireland, we eat. So if you're not out for the walk, you're sitting watching TV, and unless you're really engaged in what you're watching, you're probably just looking around, and then you are snacking, and out comes the crisps, and out comes the chocolate. So it's not even, your exercise has gone down, but actually your calories go up as well.
And that's often mindless, isn't it? You kind of forget you've had the 5 Maltesers or the 2 slices of toast or whatever.
Dairy bag of crisps. But it is quite mindless. And I'd always, if someone really wants to eat in the evening, I say, listen, at least go into the kitchen and do it. Don't do it in front of the television, because when you are watching, you see it at the cinema, you get to the bottom of the popcorn, you think, wow, where did the popcorn go? And you haven't even noticed that you've eaten it.
That's good now. I like that. That's very clever.
Yeah. We enjoy and taste what it is you're eating,
We've done that with clients with phone-free rooms, like make the sitting room a phone-free room, right, to reduce your screen time. But that's very clever in terms of eating in the sitting room, eat in the kitchen, and keep the kitchen for eating.
Yeah.
Because it's a more conscious space that you're choosing your food choices.
Yeah. So it's no harm. Even those little changes do help with that. But I was talking to a group yesterday. I was saying, you don't actually have to watch television at night. And everyone just laughed because they're like, oh yeah, we actually do. I mean, there's great stuff on TV, and if you're really engaged in what you're watching, it's brilliant. But like, so many people just don't think of doing anything else at night. And even, taking up hobbies is a really good thing, whether it's painting or you're doing a coloring book or you're knitting or whatever. And the thing is, you don't have to be any good at it. Someone said to me, well, I'm terrible at painting. It's like, we're not selling it. We're literally just occupied. When you were a kid and you just loved coloring, or, it's just to do something else as well than always sort of just coming in, watching TV and then eating.
And do we see that link between screen time, be it TV, be it tablet or phone, and mindlessly feeding ourselves?
Definitely. Like, there's really good research on this. And what they do know is that if you actually eat in a quiet room, you will eat, say, X amount, okay? If you have a radio on and someone is talking, I'm always popular when I say this and I'm doing podcasts and stuff, but if you're listening to someone talking, you eat 25% more. But if you're actually watching television and eating, you will eat double.
Double?
I'd always take televisions out of the kitchen. That just wherever your main meals are being eaten, there's no TV, and put the screens away. I have a friend, and everybody's phone has to go into a box on the counter.
Yeah.
And she's not wrong. And it is just distraction. If you're just paying, and it's not necessarily have to get into being very mindful about what you're eating. It's more just that you're not completely distracted by something else.
Double. That's a big difference.
Yeah,
huge.
It's a huge show when you're distracted. Yeah.
We take clips to our Instagram for promote our episodes. You do realize that's the clip we're going to do. This is brilliant. It's really good. Okay, so in the run up to Christmas, and generally over the course in the winter, are there any kind of food changes people should introduce into their diet in terms of, do we need to get presumably vitamin D? We should be getting more of that and other stuff.
The 2 things I'd always say to people at this time of year is definitely your vitamin D supplement. Everyone in Ireland needs to be taking 15 micrograms of vitamin D a day right through the winter. We just don't get the sunshine. The second thing is, don't lose your fruit and veg over winter. The amount of people who will eat loads of salads and fruit and everything during the summer, and then, come sort of end of October, it just dies a death. It doesn't have to, like, it's cold and we don't want to eat salads, but you can start doing stews and you can do soups. And like,
that's my question. Does it matter if it's like, a portion of broccoli with your steak or broccoli soup?
No,
is there a difference?
It's good. No, there's excellent. And there's this thing of, if you cook it, you lose all the nutrition. You don't. Some of it, you will lose a little bit of the vitamins, but not a huge amount. But you also activate some of the antioxidants in foods, like tomatoes, you activate the lycopene, things like that. So actually, it's good to have a mixture of some raw or some cooked. But in the winter, don't let it go. Just maybe shift into the warmer veg so that you're still getting it.
I've been surprised by how simple soup is to make, which might sound really simple to you, but actually, I saw a post on Instagram recently, and it was like, here's a really simple soup. So, okay, let's give it a go. Every Sunday now, we make a soup from like a parsnip, 2 carrots, and then whatever the filling, whatever we're going to put into it. Yeah. And it takes it's 15, 20 minutes, and then you have a load of soup for the week.
Well, I do a red pepper soup. It's actually a recipe on my website at eatwell.ie, and I make it twice a week because 1, it's gorgeous, and 2, it takes 20 minutes.
Yep.
And it is the nicest thing. And when people say comfort food, they often think chocolate and things like that. But you know what? Try soup next time you're looking for a comfort food, because it really does the trick. It's warming, it's soothing, it's really nice. Definitely one to try.
Some nice brown bread, a little bit of butter, people.
Yeah.
Okay. And if people are making changes then, right, they want to improve their health, should they start with food or exercise or both, or does it make a difference?
It's lovely I would always go with what's the low hanging fruit for you. Like, if the quickest thing for you to do is actually start exercising, then that's what you do. If the quickest thing is change nutrition, the point is, ideally, we want to do both because the body needs both. But what I would say to people, if they're going to make changes, don't go for huge changes because they're very hard and they're not sustainable. And there is one thing that I've seen sort of on Instagram recently is people going, look, even a 5-minute workout is better than nothing. Even a 10-minute walk is better than nothing. And they're right. And with the studies are so clear on this, even 5 minutes of exercise a day is substantially better than no exercise. So even if you just walk at lunchtime, or whatever, but like any of that is going to work. Nutrition is an easy one. I mean, if people, and I know this time of year, people do talk a lot about kind of weight loss and how do you manage that. And I would like, most people already, I often think people come to a dietitian when they know what to do and wish they didn't, and it's, you can't talk about portion sizes. And it's one I do a lot is talk about smaller plates. And it's so old as a piece of advice that people actually roll their eyes and, oh, here are smaller. But seriously, I do this with my nutrition students. You get a plate from the 1970s. If you fill it, it holds 800 calories. If you get a plate from today and you fill it, it holds 1,900 calories.
Wow.
And as far as you're concerned, it's the same spaghetti bolognese you've been eating for the last 20 years, but you are eating more than double if you're using today's size plate. So just get the plate shorter, size of your hand, and you put a rim around it.
That's the plate size.
That's for you. And it's in proportion because if you have a big...
It's easy, double that now. Easy.
Yeah. Well, you're very active. So if someone is doing, but if someone is doing triathlons, marathons, and their job is exercise, you're definitely, and you have to go with your appetite a little bit if you are hungry. But most people who are going out for a bit of a walk, that plate, it really is the right size.
This is now our second Instagram clip that we're going to pull from.
Fair enough.
But I would that to me is like a side plate.
This is the thing, and I always remember helping a friend of mine. They were clearing out their house after their parents had died, and we were kind of giving our hand. And I remember pulling out the dinner service from the 60s, and I actually thought I had the side plate in my hand until I pulled out the side plate. And my friend's a dietitian as well. The two of us were like, oh my God, because you actually see it. It's so surprising when you actually look at the difference in plates. I think, but look, wine glasses are bigger, mugs are bigger, cupcakes are bigger, scones are bigger, packets of crisps are bigger.
And that is a valid point, though, isn't it? That like just the general size of for years ago, it was the Americanization of society. That was, it was like, what we and my recent version of that, we've started to rewatch The Sopranos.
Okay.
Box set. And my recollection of when I was a kid, well, I was kind of, 12, 13, watching The Sopranos was that Tony Soprano was this huge, big American guy, but he was like supersized. And then I watched it again, and the first thing that struck me when I watched it again was Tony Soprano's quite skinny now relative to the population that we see. Yeah. That's what 20, 30 years ago. It's proved the difference in actual. Everything's got bigger, both people, but also portions have dramatically shifted and dramatically changed.
And you're trying to say something like a 12-inch pizza is dinner for 4 people with salad, that it's not a one-person serving at 2,400 calories. You know what I mean? Like it's just huge. But I think in Ireland, one of anything is the portion, no matter how big it is. So it's trying to just say, look, yes, pizza is fine. People are like, oh, pizza is terrible. It is if you eat a giant one for 4 people, but if you eat like a normal one, it's actually grand. It's just a big cheese sandwich,
And because I suppose portions have increased, right, and food. Are people also maybe not necessarily just bigger from having the disease of obesity or having overweight, but actually just physically bigger? Like we're bigger boned or taller or wider? Is there an argument around that?
Not really. We are a little bit taller, but unfortunately, Carol, not your and my generation. People coming up behind us, they're a little bit taller, but not by much. I mean, the big jump in height in Ireland actually happened between sort of the late 1940s up into the 1970s, where we saw boys, for example, jumping by 12 centimeters in height, which was huge in terms of nutrition. We haven't had anything like that. Like if you think we're having double the dinner that was going out in the 70s, we're not double the height that we were in the 70s. We might be like an inch taller, but it's not a huge amount. So most of us don't need it.
Supplements then. Very trendy, very popular. Everything from magnesium for sleep to pre-workouts to creatine. Give us the lowdown.
So supplements have a place. Some people love them, some people hate them. As a dietitian, I use them depending on what I'm doing. I work with Celiac Society and I use a lot of supplements with those patients depending on what's going on. So they can be valuable. As I said, vitamin D supplement, absolutely. In terms of everything else, unless you actually have had a blood test to show that you're low in something, I wouldn't be taking high doses of anything. And I know magnesium is sort of the big one at the moment, and it'll be something else next week. If you wanted to take something, a general multivitamin that's giving you a little bit of everything, and you don't have to buy expensive ones. Like, sometimes with expensive ones, sometimes there is other things in them that makes them a little more valuable. Sometimes they're just put a price on them and people go, well, it's more expensive. So that's why they must be better, which I see a lot. But a general sort of a top up. So if you look at something that's giving you a bit of everything around the 100% of the reference intake, if you wanted to do that, you could. I would always go food first. And the reason, and a lot of dietitians do, and the reason for that is that when you eat, if you were, for example, eat a food for iron, when you eat that food, it's generally in a protein food. So you're probably getting protein with it. You're probably also getting zinc and magnesium and all those other things. And if you can go food first. So magnesium is the big one at the moment. But if you're eating nuts and seeds, you're actually getting plenty of magnesium. But you're also then getting fiber, vitamin E. There's a whole package of nutrition that's coming from you actually going food first with it. So I think they're useful, but I would say as a dietitian, I've often saved people €1,000 a year because they've come into me with their bag of supplements and I'll take out 2 or 3 and go, yeah, they're fine. And the rest of them, you can just not.
Okay. So general multivitamin, don't spend too much money and more nuts and seeds. And every dietitian I talk to tells me that. And it's a sprinkle, right? It's a spoon, it's a sprinkle on whatever dish you have, but just sprinkle them in.
Yeah.
Chat to me about fullness then, because there are certain foods that will keep you fuller for longer. So protein-based foods being one of them. And there's simple things to add into people's kind of meal times, aren't they?
They are. And I mean, one of the things people have to say, well, I'm never full or at the end of the meal. And sometimes I'm saying to them, well, if you're doing a 1,200 calorie diet a day, you're never going to be full at the end of the meal. So sometimes you actually just need to eat some food would be kind of one thing. But in terms of just if you're kind of saying, well, when I finish a meal, I'm looking for more food. What we know is that if you get a balance of nutrition, your body is more satisfied. So if you eat a meal that has some protein in it, a little bit of carb, fiber, so that's where your fruit and veg comes in, and a little bit of fat. That's very satisfying in terms of how the body registers it. Now, a higher fat meal will always stay in your stomach a little bit longer. It might take 4 hours to digest, but if you eat a very high fat meal, generally you're going to put on a little bit more weight with it. So what I would say is that when you're building, your lunch or your dinner, you need a bit of protein, a little bit of carb, but like quarter of the plate. Plenty of veg, and then some sort of a little bit of fat. So whether that's a dressing or you cooked the protein in something, or you put a bit of mayonnaise even with it a little bit. So a little bit of fat in there as well. Now, most of us are eating plenty of fat and don't need to add loads more to it. But if you can actually get that combination, and particularly the fiber is very, very good for making you feel full for longer. It's longer before food leaves your stomach if you have a high fiber meal.
And what's the ODA for fiber?
So we're looking at least 25 grams of fibre a day. So kind of experts vary a little, but somewhere between 25 and 35. So in Ireland, the average intake is 14, with 80% of people not hitting fibre targets.
80%?
80% don't hit fibre targets, yeah.
And give me that in food forms then. So 25 will mean very little.
It's a lot. Food isn't very high in fibre. So a bowl of porridge is giving you 3 or 4 grams of fibre.
Wow.
An apple is giving you 2, slice of brown bread, 2 or 3. Beans and lentils would have a lot, like a half tin of chickpeas is about 10 grams of fibre, but a dessert spoon of seeds is about 3. So it's actually, what you need to do is fibre at every meal. Don't just think about it at breakfast, because that's where people miss. They do the cereal at breakfast and they don't think about it again. But if you're thinking, right, have I got high fibre cereal at breakfast? If I'm having bread at lunchtime, is it brown bread? If I'm having potatoes at dinner, have they got the skins on? And have I got fruit and veg at every meal? And that's actually a very good place to start to get the fibre up.
And then the likes of kind of the chickpeas or the bean. I remember interviewing the Happy Pear once, and their thing was just add a tin to whatever meal you're making, and it fibres up the meal really quickly.
And it's brilliant. Like, you can throw a handful of lentils into spaghetti bolognese. There's loads of ways to add beans and lentils into stuff, and they're actually great, and they're quite filling as well.
Okay, that's a lot. There's plenty of eating to be done to get all your fibre in. Good. Yeah. Social media, and we started with this chat, so we're going to pull towards the end with it too. There's always trends. People always want the sexy thing, the new thing. A portion plate sometimes can just, people just don't tune into it. What are we seeing at the minute? What's around, and what do people need to be aware of?
So, I mean, some of it is useful, and you can pick up some good tips on social media, but I'd say like the magnesium is just the obsession at the moment. So I'd say to you, get in your nuts and seeds and see how you go. I mean, sleep is a big thing I'm seeing a lot, and, with all kinds of information about it. But I don't know if you know, but if you eat 2 kiwi fruit about an hour before you go to bed, it's very effective at helping with sleep. You'll fall asleep faster, stay asleep for longer, and won't wake up as much during the night.
Go on. 2 kiwis?
2 kiwis, yeah. And there's really good research on that. And I love that, because actually you're also getting a bit of fruit in and some fibre in while you're at it. And that works really well.
Does it matter if you eat the skin or not?
No, it's absolutely fine. Skin is not essential.
Some people can do and some people can't. It's kind of strange texture.
It's a funny texture, yeah. It is. So that's one of the big trends that I'm seeing. The other one is talking about sort of balancing hormones all the time. And the thing about that is there's very limited things you can do diet-wise to balance hormones. And particularly, we see things around, say, underactive thyroid. And the thing about underactive thyroid, particularly in Ireland, the vast majority of people who have an underactive thyroid have an autoimmune disease. And it's called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Oh, yes. And diet does zero for that. In the sense that there's no diet going to fix it. And I've had people coming into the clinics over the years going, oh, I just don't want to take the medication anymore. Well, it's kind of like being a type 1 diabetic and saying, I don't want to take the insulin. It just isn't actually going to work. And the problem is, what I'm seeing is some of the social media accounts are saying, oh, well, you don't need to take the medication, eat beans. And you're like, it's not going to replace it. And as someone who has an underactive thyroid, believe me, if there was diet going to do it, I would be on it. But there isn't. So it's fine. So I think those kind of things is go back to your doctor. And I think there's a scare around if people are sort of aligned with kind of medical that, oh, they're bought or they're sold or they've no ethics. And I was going, most people actually just want to help you like anybody else. And I think what you said, and you did a good thing on it, is check qualifications. Anybody can set themselves up as a health expert on Instagram. And
coach is the word I see everywhere now. It's coach.
Yeah.
Coach.
Are you a nutrition coach or a physical activity coach? But anyone can wake up and do it. And just with nutrition, I'd always say, just go back and check. What did they study and where did they study? I had someone say to me years ago from a nutrition point of view, and we were arguing nicely about something. And I said, oh, well, there's no actual scientific evidence for that. And the person turned around and said to me, it was a straight face, said, well, you dietitians only use science. I just didn't I hadn't an answer. And but it's really just to say, like, sometimes it might sound okay, and a lot of it is harmless, like it really is. But if you're getting scared by what you're watching, nutrition isn't scary, shouldn't be scary, doesn't have to be scary. If you're feeling scared by it, go to someone else where they're actually talking and they're talking a bit of sense about stuff, and that's actually your thing. It doesn't need to be scary. I would hate to do a video or something on Instagram that frightens people. Because, dietitians, we spend a lot of time in clinic picking up the pieces of people who've been scared by things that they've seen or heard over the years. And, you look at eating disorders or disordered eating and all of that. And it breaks my heart when I see people coming in, they're so frightened of certain foods. And what I love is after a couple of months, someone coming in and going, like, I'm really glad I talked to you because actually I'm not scared of whatever it is. I'm more relaxed about food. And that's what it should be. Food should be something we eat and enjoy.
Sarah, as ever, I love when we chat because you're all just sensible and brilliant. You're great. Thank you for joining us today. As ever, we really appreciate it. Folks, if you want to check out Sarah's page, it's at Sarah Keogh RD on Instagram. You will find sense and content and lots of tips to make your health even better than it is. As ever, that's it for this week of Real Health with me, Carl Henry. You know where we are, at Carl Henry PT on Instagram, realhealth@independent.ie and on the Irish Independent website. Don't forget to follow, like, rate and review, and we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.